First of all, I'm a huge fan of yours growing up, watching everything from The Year of Living Dangerously to Tim to Mad Max.
Oh, thanks, yeah.
What brought you back to directing, and what was it about the script?
It ticked all my boxes, you know. Generally, I generate the material myself. But this came from outside, and man, it just got to me right here, you know.
Yeah.
And I thought, I got to tell this story. It's a story well worth telling about a man who did extraordinary things in extraordinarily difficult circumstances. And I think there's a lesson and inspiration for all of us in that story. So I think it's worth spreading.
Oh, I think so too. And wow, you were the actor to do it. I can't imagine what you went through to bring that role, both of you, to bring this role to life.
Oh,
what was it like?
It was an honor, really. It was just there was a no-brainer to go to work with Mel and to go to work with a character like Desmond, and it was really inspired by the man that we were trying to depict. That was the guiding force all the way through. We felt like we had his hand on our back with it. We kept on trying to remind ourselves. We would always be able to check back in with Desmond. That was always the thing. So it was a pure pleasure and a pure honor, and we had enough energy. We were given enough energy to see it through. But yeah, I mean, there's a great responsibility, of course. Mm-hmm. But what a privilege simultaneously.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I've seen a war film deal so much with faith as this one does, which I thought was a really interesting take.
Oh, I think faith is a necessary component in war situations. I think most guys who go to war, they're relying on something greater than themselves to get them through it, because it's kind of overwhelming. I mean, you're putting your life out there. And it could be the end of it at any minute, and they're wondering about, well, what's next, you know? So they're thinking about the next realm. And of course, you know, God is love, and I think this is a love story. Mm-hmm. And Desmond displayed love for his fellow man. Not only would he not take a life, he would risk his own life to save a life. And it was like, that's kind of an extraordinary, selfless act of love that I mean, he really put his money where his spirit was.
Yeah, nobody does that. Nobody does that in the
people
state.
Do that, but like they're rare. I mean, but I don't know. But I'm inspired by you know, when I was reading the script, I mean, I had tears on page 100 and you know whatever, and you know, it inspired. It continues to inspire me, that story, and I hope maybe it leaves a little residue in some back file in my brain where maybe if I need to pull out some esteemable act sometime, I'll be able to do it because of someone else's example, you know.
You've had a busy year.
There's like, I keep saying there's been a lot of babies, like film babies, real babies. It's all happening.
You know, a Mel Gibson directed film. That's got to be kind of crazy and insane and awesome, all wrapped into one.
Yeah, it was surreal. For me, it was so surreal because I'm an Aussie, so growing up, hearing of Mel Gibson and seeing his films and you expect him to be a certain way. I was like, oh, he'll be very serious about his craft and his work, and he is serious about making films, but he's also this totally jovial, spirited, excitable guy who has this infectious energy, who's cracking jokes left, right, and center, and I really could appreciate that because we're telling this story with such a heavy subject, and then you have the director like really being engaged and has a beautiful, bright energy, and the whole crew just was thriving off of it, and I think it made people work harder.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have expected it to be just a serious, somber filmmaking process.
Opposite.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, what was it like taking on Dorothy and dealing with this character? Such an amazing character, and that's unusual for a female in this kind of movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen those war films where there's, you know, the typical wife character and she's sad that her husband leaves, but there's a lot of substance to Dorothy. She's a real person. She's very well-rounded, and She has strength and a sassiness to her, and she definitely wears the pants in the relationship, and I loved all those elements of it naturally. But she's also a woman who stands by her own convictions, and it offers such beautiful, unwavering support to her husband, and really has to navigate through a lot of her own internal conflicts surrounding her husband going off to war, and also being in the front lines without a weapon. I mean, she probably expected her husband to die in the war. So it was very interesting. I had to prepare a lot. I listened to a lot of her audio tapes and looked at photographs and had to change my voice 100%. So it was really interesting. Yeah,
you did a nice job with I mean, it was like right on. It was good
stuff.
Oh,
thanks. I really worked with the dialect coach a lot.
Like, what else did you work on to find her? What was it? Just
everything.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, this is a role. This is a real person. You got to pay credit to.
Exactly. And I am not very similar to her in many ways. I am much less graceful. I am less womanly. I am more of a dude. No, I am actually quite tomboyish, and the way I walk and the way I speak, and I had to change all of that. So I just had to do it with a coach, a voice coach. I have a very naturally gravelly voice. Had to get rid of the tone of my voice, change all the intonations, wore a wig, just a whole transformation.
This seems like such an exciting thing to be involved with, a Mel Gibson directed film. We haven't seen one for a long time. How did you both get involved?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to kind of be the first script I read last year, and I put it down and I just wanted to be anything in this movie. I would have played a tree, and if they didn't give me the tree, I would have been a rock, But I put down an audition, kind of self-tape, and luckily Mel kind of enjoyed it, and then I was supposed to go and sit down with him, but I was terribly sick, and I wasn't able to. So I thought I was really kind of devastated. I thought I'd blown it, but a couple of days later I got a phone call and he goes, "Hey Luke, it's Mel." And I went, "Gibson?" Hi. And no, we ended up chatting for about 45 minutes or so, and I'm a big history buff, and obviously he knows everything about this stuff, and we actually just kind of talked about the era and World War II and the Pacific Theatre for 45 minutes, and at the end of it he goes, "All right, I'll see you in Sydney." And I went, "Oh, wow, okay.
Wow.
I think I got the movie." So that's kind of how I did. And then for the rest of that, I just put my head down, my bum up, and just worked and tried to dive into this as much as I could and gave it everything I got.
Wow. Wow. What about you?
Yeah, the script came in, I read it, and I've always been a big fan of Mel's as a filmmaker, and I liked that the movie was really about something. It was an interesting story I had never seen or heard of. This Desmond Doss, who went on this journey. So I was really impressed with his conviction, his faith, and his ability to stay true to himself in those kind of settings. So I really liked the character, had a lot to do in the movie, and I like that positioning of preparing all the kids for going into combat. So it was an easy yes for me, and it's nice to be a part of something a movie that's really I find to be very inspiring.
Mm-hmm. Well, I also find I like that your character, but yours as well, is that a lot of times you'll see war movies and there are these stereotypical villains that are the bad guys, and that wasn't the case here. There was kind of what you were doing. You're trying to prepare these kids, and it made sense. Same way you were looking out for your squad.
Yeah.
That must be much easier to work with as an actor.
Well, yeah, it's not being mean for the sake of being mean. You really find out, where this guy came from and the kind of loneliness and he's actually, scared like the rest of us. But yeah, for me, I took that kind of start of it as he just wanted to know who he could trust when they got over there, kind of thing. He's a survivor, my guy, that way. So I think, there's a bit of a turning point in the barracks scene after he gets kind of beaten up Desmond and kind of still sticks to his guns. Oh, maybe this is the toughest guy we know. And then when I keep running into him in that first battle, it's just like, this bloke, man, he actually is who he says he is. And yeah, it was really nice to have that redemption for my character, actually. I really liked not being mean just because, it's a character that's mean, you know.
Yeah. What about you? What did you find in this character? What did you connect
Well, I didn't
with?
play it from any of those places. I more so was just, you know, you have a guy who won't touch a weapon. That's odd.
Yeah.
And in the military, we're there to go kill people in war, so it's not a fit. But I played it very much so that, you know, I thought he was a man of substance who believed what he said, and it's a tough moment, and I felt bad for the guy because I could tell he wasn't full of shit, and he was very genuine, but it wasn't a situation that was fitting. So a lot of the stuff that came out, I think, came from the intentions. So then there's a lot of humor even with me and him later in the movie. We kind of laugh and have a sense of humor, banter back and forth. So, you know, it was a lot of that stuff just came out of the necessity of the dynamic of what the, you know, points of view that the characters had. And that was fun because it was surprising sometimes, you know, where the stuff would go. There wasn't really a plan going into that scene of how you would respond in that moment, or it was really just listening and taking in what Andrew did, who was, you know, terrific in the movie as well, and just really kind of seeing what happened. So I think, you know, part of that's Mel and the design of the screenplay, that you have a more dimensionalized look at stuff. You're not painting in just sort of, you know, broad colors.